Hi, this is going to be a video response to the readings in Chapter 3 in Assessment is Essential. And Chapter 3 is titled Diagnostic Assessment, Ensuring Student Success from the Beginning. And then also from Assessing Students in Groups, Chapter 2, which is Structuring Productive Groups. I'm going to go ahead and start off with structuring productive groups. There was a lot of things that were mentioned in this chapter about what the characteristics of a good group are, how you need to keep an eye on the groups to make sure that they still function properly and so that they don't fall through the cracks. They have different types of groups that they listed. They have pseudo-learning groups, which aren't really so hot. They have traditional classroom learning groups, which are a little bit better. Then they have cooperative learning groups, which are really good. And then there's high-performance cooperative learning groups, which is the one that you want to try to reach for, but sometimes that doesn't really happen. Cooperative learning groups are the main ones that they talk about throughout. And the main part that the part that I took, that I stressed upon more, was the we instead of the me attitude for the group learning systems. And I find that to be a really good attitude to have so that they can try to think of it as not only themselves but as a part of a functional, cohesive whole to try to get a grade based off of that. But then there's the catch to that. It's where you have students in groups and then there's one that doesn't really pull their weight, and so they have to have the group grade, but then also a little individual performance assessment based off of that. And so it can get kind of hard to have properly functioning groups and to have a valued input from all members of that group, but it's a good thing. Groups are a good thing. I still love learning in groups. I think learning, discussing, and trying new things in groups usually helps people out, because then they can learn from their peers, not be made fun of because it's a structured environment to go ahead and learn something else. And so I think that groups are a good thing. And then they're talking about how teachers can go ahead and how teachers have to participate in this by deciding on the size of the group, how to assess the students in the group, how to arrange the room, and so on and so forth. And I think that they should be, if it's going to be like a whole year-long type thing for the group, that they should be sitting right next to each other or very close to each other so that they can get to each other and ask questions and get help from their group if they're going to have a whole team mentality on the whole thing. Moving on to Assessment is Essential, Chapter 3. It was discussing the diagnostic assessment. That's basically the assessment before you actually do anything. It's the one to find out what your students know, how capable they are, if they already know the material that you're planning on teaching them. It's basically trying to see where your students are at, where they're comfortable, so that you can design a proper lesson plan based off of that. And they've said so many things. Be careful where you get your information. Make sure you can get enough information. It's an information overload. But they did have they did mention the one thing that I actually really liked about this chapter was they mentioned that if you teach them like they're all high achievers, then they're all going to think that they're high achievers, and then they're all going to try more. It was mentioned in the book that some students if the teacher just passes them over and automatically thinks that they have low expectations of the student, or set low expectations of the student, then the student's not really going to achieve his full potential or put very much forward, because they pick up on that. They pick up on those cues, and so they automatically think, well, they're not expecting from me very much, so why do I need to put forth very much effort for something that I'm not going to be rewarded for? And I don't like that. I think everybody should be given an equal opportunity, an equal chance to try to go ahead and to prove themselves, to show that they know the material, to show that they can do these things that they're being asked to do. And then a quote in there that I found really touching and really moving was, I don't want to get it wrong, let me find it, but it was basically this little boy, when a new student came into the classroom, he had raised his hand for a question, and the little boy, here we go, it's on page 70 of chapter 3, and it said, and the little boy said, "Put your hand down, Mrs. Lawless calls on all of us. She thinks we're all smart." I think that's amazing that she instilled such confidence into those kids just by doing a simple thing such as not having students raise their hands and calling on students with their hands raised, because it's been shown that normally the high achievers are the ones that are going to raise their hands, and then the low achievers aren't really going to raise their hands very much, so they're just going to get skipped over for the questions. Therefore, they're going to think that it's not expected of them to really know the material as well, because they're not going to get called on because they don't raise their hands. So that part really, it touched me. I thought it was a really sweet quote. I thought it was a really sweet thing, and I would love to have something said like that about me. Well, those are my thoughts and feelings on chapters 2 and 3 from Assessment is Essential and from Assessing Students in Groups.